So I have the honor of introducing someone who's very special to me. I haven't known him that long, but his passion and his vision is so profound to make change in this nation, and he's in a perfect position to do that. So I have the honor of introducing someone who's a true champion for families across the country. Clarence H. Carter is the director of the Office of Family Assistance at the Federal Health and Human Services Administration for Children and Families. Prior to his current role, he came from the Institute for the Improvement of the Human Condition, which he founded. There he worked with state and local safety net agencies to meet the emergency needs of socially and economically vulnerable citizens. Over time, Clarence has served as the director of the Arizona Department of Economic Security in addition to other state, federal, and local human services management positions. During his service in the Bush administration, he managed the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, as you know as SNAP, and the Office of Community Services. As the commissioner of the Virginia Department of Social Services, his program was instrumental in growing the capacity of its citizens. In his first 5 years, more than 25,000 public assistance recipients obtained gainful employment, earning in excess of $200 million. On the local level, while serving as director in Washington, D.C. Department of Human Services, Clarence led the design and operation of an initiative to house more than 1,000 homeless residents. In this effort, he transformed the district's shelter-based homeless system to one based in permanent supportive housing as the primary mechanism to reduce homelessness. I've had the pleasure of working closely with Clarence as NCFL's work grows to impact the safety net systems in our country. He's quickly become one of my heroes. He said to me today, "Don't talk about what I've done, talk about where we're going," and he will talk about that passionately. He comes to this important work with grace, compassion, and a steadfast commitment to helping people reach self-sufficiency. If I don't quit talking about Clarence Carter wherever I go, people think I'm going to run off with him. I say, "Oh, you have to meet Clarence Carter." So I'm so thrilled that you're here, Clarence. Thank you.
Sharon, thanks so much for that warm introduction. I have to tell you that I'm a little bit intimidated coming in front of you after such a powerful story of overcoming. LaDevlin, you are a hero. I'd like to thank Sharon for the invitation to be with you again this year. I met Sharon a little bit more than a year ago, and it was clear to me that we were going to be partners in a journey to transform the American safety net. And what I'd like to do is to share with you for a few minutes this morning a vision of the future and ask you to help me make it so. But before I get to that vision of the future, I want to tell you a little bit about the journey that Sharon and I have had for this past year. So we met not very long before this conference, as I said, a little bit more than a year ago. And in an initial 1-hour meeting of us connecting and literally talking over each other for our effervescence about the work that we were doing, we knew that we had to find ways to work together. And one of the reasons that Sharon and I were connected is because it was her hope to be able to introduce the National Center for Families Learning and the Family Learning Service model to human services agencies. And as she said, we do an awful lot of our work in the education space, But what we do is we are transforming families for them to grow beyond the vulnerability that has them in the system of public supports. And so let me tell you a little bit about the power of connections. So over this past year, Sharon and I have been talking about how do we expand the footprint of this very vital asset. And so in that conversation, I said, I really did appreciate the opportunity to be a part of your conference last year, and I'd like to do that again. And I said, but what if this time, if I asked a few of my colleagues to join me? And so today, we have with you representatives of 8 southern states, the human services leadership from those states. They are here because they want to understand the value of this amazing asset. And I want to thank my friend and colleague, Carlos Williams, for helping us to put this together. And so those commissioners and directors and secretaries now, we're going to get together just after this party ends and have a conversation about the future of the safety net and some things that are important to us. So from that humble beginning last year, we are spreading the significance of this vital organization and this vital partnership to the work of the American Safety Net. So as I said, I want to share with you for just a couple of minutes about a vision of the future of the American Safety Net. So folks, I would tell you that I have had the blessing and in some moments I feel like the curse of administering public safety net programs and agencies at the federal, state, and local level of government for my entire 27-year career. And I have come to a couple of unmistakable conclusions. The first is that it is really inappropriate to call our system of public supports a system at all. It is an aggregation of single-purpose programs, each one with its own rules, its own funding, its own objectives. You know, I've been reading some federal reports, and depending on which report you read, there are either 87, 109, or 129 federal programs designed to serve the socially, economically, and developmentally vulnerable in our community. Now, it's pretty bad when you can't even figure out what the number is. Okay? And so that is where our problem begins. The first part of our problem is we don't have an overarching intention or vision for service to the economically, socially, and developmentally vulnerable in our community. And because we don't have an overarching vision, we end up being driven by the rules of 87, 109, or 129 programs. Okay? And what we are held accountable for in the administration of those programs is not human well-being, but we are held accountable for the administration of those programs. So I get held accountable for counting the widgets, for ensuring that we have delivered a benefit, good, or service. I'm not held accountable for creating the enabling conditions for LaDevlin. It's organizations like this that do that. And so I start with an argument that we have to begin with the end in mind. We have to have an overarching objective. And I would argue that our overarching objective as a society should be to grow as many vulnerable individuals and families, grow them beyond that vulnerability so that they can lead a life of their own choosing. That the public safety net should be a mile marker in a life's journey, not a destination unto itself. And for anybody who would ever labor under the false assumption that people who end up needing to avail themselves of the system of public supports are somehow shiftless, lazy, and undeserving people, I commend to your attention example number one, LaDevlin. That young woman shared a powerful testimony with us of somebody who life happened to, as it does for all of us. And some of that life happening had her in a place that was not of her own choosing. But she didn't settle in that place. She knew that she wanted more for herself and her children. And as God moves in strange and mysterious ways, she found out one day that help was right across the street. And so as she was able to avail herself of that help and be part of a loving, nurturing community that would create the enabling conditions and support her in making her way, she becomes for me a prime model, an example of a safety net dedicated to growing people beyond their vulnerability. And so I say that that's the safety net that we need to fight for as a society. Not one that focuses on the simple administration of benefits, goods, and services, but one that focuses on enhancing individual freedom. Freedom is not having to wait for your life to be conferred upon you by a government agency or a program. Freedom is being able to make your life work as you choose to. And so we want to usher in a transformative era of a societal safety net that is dedicated to this proposition, that we will do all in our power as a society to strengthen our nation by strengthening her people. And folks, one of the important aspects of this new vision that we are hoping to usher in is a belief in the people that we serve. You know, too often in our hope to serve the socially and economically and developmentally vulnerable, we somehow think that they are too fragile, too challenged, too infirmed to be able to put other things on them to ultimately be able to help them make their way. Too often we somehow believe that they cannot. I would argue in our new vision, we do not have the authority to tell another human being what they cannot do. It is our societal obligation to help everyone unleash their God-given ability to make their life work. But you have to do that by beginning with a belief that they can. NCFL is full of people and communities who believe that they can, and who believe that success is not just the introduction of NCFL to a family, but success is helping them grow beyond that moment. Success is helping someone like LaDevlin move from a consumer of the NCFL services to a deliverer of those services. That is transformation. And so, very often you will encounter someone from government and they say, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Well, folks, I would have just a slightly different twist on that saying. Today, I am from the government and I am here asking for your help. Your help in transformation. Your help in growing the capacity of the vulnerable in our society to reduce their dependency. Your help in strengthening America by strengthening her people. Sharon and Josh, I very much appreciate the opportunity to be a part of the NCFL family, and I look forward to the rest of our journey in transforming the American safety net. It's my pleasure to be here with you this morning.